Hi, and welcome back to Beyond You podcast because you already know that's the part that nobody talks about. Not the moment you find out, not the argument that goes too far, not the night you cry on the bathroom floor. The part nobody talks about is the part where you already know and you stay anyway. You wake up in the morning and some part of you knows the relationship is costing you more than it's giving you. You can feel it in your shoulders, in the way you hold your breath, when you hear his key in the door, in the way you have rehearsed 100 versions of this ending in your mind. And then talk to yourself out of every single one. That gap, the one between knowing and going, that is what this episode is about. So, not a checklist, not a lecture, not someone who has never been in the wreckage of something complicated telling you it should be simple. If I were in this situation, and I mean sitting inside it, not just watching it from the outside, here is what I would do first. And I want you to stay with me. Okay? So, let's get started. Welcome to the Beyond You podcast, where we have real conversations about healing, trusting yourself again, and building the kind of relationships that actually feel good. I'm Samantha, and if you've ever felt like you're just going through the motions, like you're doing all the right things but still feeling disconnected, you're in the right place. Because here we go beyond the surface, beyond the hurt, beyond the patterns that keep you stuck. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's get into it. So, first, I want you to welcome to the Beyond You podcast, a professional woman of color who are ready to stop performing fine and start building something real in their relationships, their inner lives with themselves. We're getting to your almost authentic best you. And I'm your host, Samantha Saunders. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and I specialize in helping just women break out of relational patterns that have kept them stuck, people pleasing, quietly disappearing inside relationships that were never meant to hold them. So today, I want to do something a little bit different, right? We're in the mid year. Let's just kind of get into that. I'm tired of advice episodes that hand you 5 bullet points and send you on your way. Like leaving a toxic relationship is a logistical problem. Like, if you just found the right apartment and told the right people, everything would fall into place. So that's not what this is. Instead, I want to walk you through what I would actually do. First person, as a human, therapist hat on, no performance. If I were the one sitting inside of relationship, I knew I needed to leave because I think that framing matters. You should keeps you at arm's length. Here's what I would do. Puts us in the same room together. So let's be in the same room. You ready? Okay. So I want to start off with just kind of personal lens with this, right? I want to just tell you about a client I'll call Maya. Maya was 34 years old. She was a project manager at a tech firm, sharp, organized, the person on her team who always had a plan outside of work. She was the one of her friends called when things just fell apart. She was a fixer, a holder, someone who had learned very early in her life that love looks like solving problems for other people. So when Maya came to see me, she had been in her relationship for 6 years, right? And so I just want to get that framework because she described her partner with a precision that I still think about. She said he's not a bad person. He's just not a safe person. And she said it so quietly, like she was confessing something. She knew. She had known for at least 2 years before she sat in my office. She could tell me in detail the ways the relationship diminished her, the comments that chipped at her confidence, the isolation that had happened so gradually she barely noticed until she looked up one day and realized She had stopped calling her best friend the way she edited herself before speaking, always pre calculating how he would receive her, just how he would receive her words. She was not naive to this. She was not uneducated. She was not someone who didn't understand what was happening to her. And she could not leave. And that's happened to so many of us. And I share Maya's story, of course, it's a made up name, because she's not an exception. She is the rule. The women who stay longest in toxic relationships are often the ones who are the most self aware about what is happening. They have read the books, they know the terms, they can describe their own patterns with just startling clarity, and still they stay. And the reason for that is not just weakness, it's not stupidity, it is not some character flaw she needs to overcome through with just more willpower. The reason is far more human than that. And I want to spend this whole episode honoring that reason. I think we really got it mixed up of just why people stay. So let's just kind of get further deep into that, because I've noticed that there's a lot of judgments from other people about why people do the things they do. So let's be able to get honest about what you're actually afraid to lose. So if I were inside this situation, the very first thing I would do is not pack a bag. I would sit down somewhere quiet, phone down, no distractions, and I would get radically honest with myself about what I was actually afraid to lose. Not him, okay? I mean, yes, him, right? Him too. But before that, I would look underneath that fear and name what is really there. Because here is a thing I have just learned from years of sitting with women in this exact place. Most of them are not grieving the relationship they're in, they're grieving the relationship they thought they were going to have. The one they imagined, the one that was possible on the good days, the one they have been waiting to get back to since things started to shift. That is a different grief, and it is a legitimate one. The fantasy of who this person could be, who you could be together, can be more powerful than the reality of what is actually in front of you. And that is not delusion. That is the human brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. We attach to potential. We bond over glimpses of what's good, and we hold on sometimes for years trying to get back to a version of this that may never have been fully real. And I would name the fantasy out loud if I could. In writing, I would stop calling it love and I start calling it just longing. And I would sit with the distinction until it became clear. But there's more underneath the fantasy, because what I would also have to get honest about my identity inside this relationship. How much of who I think I am is built around being in this relationship? How much of my daily life, my routine, my social world, even the way I describe myself is organized around this person? And I liked how someone said that I am a girl with a boyfriend, just being a girlfriend or what. Like, being able to just honor you in that space. And this is especially layered for Black women and women of color, because we often have handed up for a very particular story about what it means to be a good woman, a loyal woman, a woman who holds her family together, a woman who doesn't give up. Those stories have value, and they can also become a trap because leaving starts to feel like a betrayal of who you're raised to be. And I would have to ask myself, am I staying because I love this person? Or am I staying because leaving would require me to rebuild an identity I don't fully know how to live outside of? You really have to be able to ask yourself this. And then, and this is the part most people skip, and I would have to acknowledge the nervous system piece, just how you're feeling within your body. Her body has learned this relationship as home, right? And understand this is not a metaphor or it's just neuroscience. When we are in a relationship for long enough, even an unsafe one, our nervous system encodes that person as familiar, as regulated, and as the baseline of what calm feels like. So, this means that when you think about leaving, your body doesn't just experience emotional fear, it experiences something that feels almost biological, like a visceral pullback toward what it knows, toward what it has come to recognize as safety, even when that thing is not safe. And understand that is not weakness, it's just how the brain wires to kind of get you in spaces that feel familiar. And if I were in this situation, I would not shame myself for it. I would get curious about it instead. I would say, my body is trying to protect me the only way it knows how, with the map it has been given. So my job is to draw a new map. I just love to give metaphors to kind of get people to take this in. And that process just starts with honesty. It doesn't end there, but it starts there. So you want to be able to give your brain a new map, but it's going to feel uncomfortable at first. So I want you to be able to build one safe container before you make any move. The second thing I would do before I told anyone, before I made a single practical decision, before I start Googling anything, is to find one safe container, just one, not five, not a whole support system, because building that from scratch when you're already depleted will stop you before you start. So, one, just one. And here's why this matters. One of the most consistent features of toxic relationship is isolation. And I want to say that clearly because people hear that word isolation and they think about dramatic controlling behavior, someone taking your phone, forbidding you to see your friends. And yes, sometimes it looks like that, but more often it is subtle, it is slow, it is a relationship that gradually became the center of your entire world. And you can't pinpoint exactly when that happened. He didn't take your friends away, right? You just stopped making plans because making plans meant navigating his mood afterwards. You stopped calling your sister because she asked too many hard questions and you didn't have the energy to defend him anymore. You stopped going to your therapist because you ran out of things to say that didn't lead back to the same conversation. And now, when you look around, the world is smaller than it used to be, and he is at the center of it. That is how isolation works in toxic relationships, not as a sudden dramatic act of control, but as a slow, almost unpredictable shrinking. The exit begins with the opposite movement, expansion, even just by one. If I were in this situation, I would find one person or one space where I could tell the truth, not the managed truth, not the version I've been giving people for years to protect him or protect my own image, but the actual truth. And that might be a therapist. And I believe deeply in the value of just professional support in this process. A good therapist is not going to tell you what to do, right? It's not her job. She's going to, or he's going to help you hear yourself more clearly, which is exactly what you need right now. It might be one trusted friend, someone who has earned the right to hold your real story, not just a version you perform in public, someone who can sit with you in the hard thing without flinching. It might be a journal. If people feel unsafe right now, writing counts. It might be you speaking your truth onto a page and having it witnessed by the only person who matters in this moment, you, and that counts. It might even be a hotline. If you're not sure what category this relationship falls into, organizations like the National Domestic Violence Hotline exist not just for crisis, but for clarity as well. You don't have to be in the immediate danger to call. You can call because you're confused and need someone trained to help you name what you're in. What matters is that you break the silence with at least one entity before you take any other action. Because here's what I know about the silence: it feeds the relationship's power as long as no one outside the relationship knows the whole truth. The relationship gets to be defined entirely by what happens inside it. The moment you say it out loud to someone safe, you create a witness, you create a record, you create the beginning of a reality that exists outside of what he says it is. And that is so important. That is not a small thing. That is not a systemic shift. And if you're wondering whether what I do with my own clients counts, yes. This is exactly where I start with the women I work with. Before action plans, before conversations, before any of it, we build safety first. Right? If you're looking for that one safe space and you don't know where to start, no, I can be a part of that. There is our community here. Feel free to subscribe. You can just find information about working with me in the show notes, but also just we have communities that be able to help with this as well, because you're limited in who I see. But even if that's not a right fit, I need you to find someone, one person, one space. That is step 2. Now we're going to get into step 3. We are going to decide what kind of exit this is. Once you have that one safe container in place, I would do something that most people skip entirely. I would figure out what kind of exit I was actually making, because not every exit looks the same. And treating them all the same is one of the ways just people either move too slowly when speed matters, or create unnecessary chaos when a more intentional approach is possible. Those are 2 things I find. Okay. And so when it comes to that, I want it for you to be able to choose on what you want to do. So let me first name the difference though, because I think that can be really helpful. There are situations where the exit requires an immediate safety plan, where there is physical danger, escalating threats, financial control, or level of psychologically coercion that makes a slow, gradual exit generally unsafe. In these situations, the most important thing is not processing your feelings, it is protecting your body. That means connecting with just professional resources, potentially law enforcement, and making a plan with people who are trained to help you navigate leaving safely. Okay, so I just want to get that out the way, because I want to say this without being an alarmist, because I know that some women will hear domestic violence resource and think that doesn't apply to them because the harm hasn't been physical. But I just want to put out there that the National Domestic Violence Hotline defines abuse broadly. It includes emotional abuse, financial abuse, coercive control, and isolation. If any of that sounds familiar, please do not let a narrow definition of what qualifies keep you accessing real support. If you are not sure which category your situation falls into, please talk to someone trained in this area before you make any moves, because your one safe container from step 2 is the right place to start that conversation. Just to make sure you guys are aware of that. But there are also situations where the exit, while painful and complicated, does not carry that level of immediate risk. right? It's a lot of my clients who do it. It's not immediate risk. It's not someone doing physical, but situations where the toxicity is real, where the relationship is generally damaging your sense of self, your mental health, your future, but where you have some time to be intentional. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. In those situations, I would not burn everything down just at once, right? We're not doing that. Okay, because I know that can sometimes we go to. I would make a quiet, intentional plan. I would think about practicalities, finances, living situation, shared responsibilities, not because those things come before just your emotional well-being, but because having answers to the logistical questions removes one of the biggest reasons women stay stuck. But what about the apartment question or but we share a bank account question, right? Getting honest answers to those questions, even preliminary ones, removes the ceiling from the decision, right? Because I would also decide ahead of time how I wanted the conversation to go. And more importantly, I would decide what the conversation's goal was. You always want to think about what the message you're trying to get to somebody else. Like, what do you want them to take away from what you're saying? The goal is not to make them understand, right? Not validate, not getting validation, make them understand. No. I have seen too many women delay their exit, waiting for an apology or acknowledgement that never came. The goal, a lot of the times, is to tell the truth and exit with your integrity intact. That is all. So what kind of exit is this? Think about that, right? Whether you get whatever plan you need in place or what just you can afford at the time. Just because you decide to move to doesn't mean you're going to sit there forever. But that is the question worth sitting with. And the answer shapes everything that comes next. So I want you to really be able to think about that. So step 4, I want you to be able to let go of waiting to feel ready. Okay, and so this is the section I care about most, because if I am being completely honest with you and with myself, this is the step that most women never reach. Not because they don't want to, but because they are waiting. They're waiting. They're waiting to feel ready. And I think we get really misconstrued of what that actually means of waiting to feel ready. Because there's never that moment. It's like just making a decision. And I have to tell you something that I want you to write down and say out loud or put anywhere, somewhere that you will see it. Let me know when you're ready. Because ready doesn't come before the decision. It comes after. And I know that can really sound misconstrued that it comes after, but it's true, right? Like you have to just kind of know you're going to make the decision when it comes to boundaries. And let me say that again, because I want it to really, truly land. It just in you. Readiness is not a feeling you arrive at before you make the move. It is a feeling you build on the other side of the decision. The woman who woke up one day and finally felt ready, she didn't find readiness. I know I didn't, right? She made a decision without it, and readiness followed. Because I know it's going to be scary, right? This matters so much because waiting for readiness is one of the most effective ways to stay stuck for years. Years. And here's what readiness waiting looks like. Because, a little practice in here. You tell yourself you'll leave when you feel more financially stable. You tell yourself you'll leave when the relationship gets bad enough, as if there is some precise threshold of pain that will finally unlock the exit. You tell yourself you'll leave after the holidays, after his birthday, after things settle down at work. There's always a reason why. After things, after, it's constantly, right? And what is actually happening underneath all of that Let me know in the comments what you think, because your nervous system is trying to protect you. Your mind is buying time, not because you are weak, but because the brain interrupts this major life change, even a positive one, even as even an escape from something harmful as a threat. And I know you understand that because it's going to feel uncomfortable. Change is uncertain. What you have right now is painful, but it is known. And the known, even when it hurts, registers as safer than the unknown. And that's why we always kind of stay within our comfort zones. And I know it's hard, but you got to make that change for yourself. And this is the cruelest part of toxic relationships. They are designed to make the unknown feel unsurvivable. It really is. And if you have been told directly or indirectly that you cannot function without this person, if the relationship has slowly eroded your confidence in your own judgment, if you have been just made to feel that your feelings are too much, too sensitive, too unreliable, then of course the unknown feels like a cliff. I get that. I do. But here's what I know from sitting with women who have made it to the other side consistently. The cliff is a lie. It just doesn't know what it looks like yet. Okay, but yet is that word, is the main one. You have been surviving inside this relationship. You have been managing, negotiating, adapting, carrying weight that was never meant to be yours. If you can survive inside this, you can survive outside of it as well. You don't need to feel ready. You need to decide. And making the decision, even quietly, even just inside yourself, even in the smallest possible way, is where everything begins to shift. So, Maya, let's call her Maya, my client, I told you about at the beginning of this episode, the project manager, the fixer, and the woman who can name every pattern and still couldn't leave. She didn't feel ready. The day she finally made her move, she didn't at all. She told me afterward, I felt terrified. I felt like I was going to fall apart, but I also felt underneath all of that something I hadn't felt in years. I asked her, what that was. And she said, myself. That is what is waiting on the other side of the decision. Not a perfect life, not an easy road, not instant peace, yourself. And if you have been in a relationship that required you to slowly disappear, you already know how rare and how pressured it is to finally come home to yourself again. You don't need to be ready. You need to trust. You need to trust that you will build the readiness after. It is a trusting process. I know, tough to talk about, right? You made it all the way through here. I'm so glad. I want to be able to close by this episode by speaking directly to the part of you that has been sitting with us, the part that has known maybe for a long time that something has to change, the part that has also stayed, that has talked herself out of it, that has made peace on the situation on Monday and started mourning it again by Thursday. I see her. I am not here to push you out the door. I'm not here to tell you that it's simple or that you just need more courage or that love should not feel like this much work. No. I'm not here to tell you all that. I'm here to say the gap between knowing and going is real. It is one of the most painful places a person can live. And you are not alone in it. You're not. If this episode just met you somewhere tender, I will just want to invite you to stay close to this space. Subscribe. You make sure you're part of this community. We're always talking about these different types of work here. Subscribe to Beyond You podcast. If you notice here, make sure to follow. Reviews. Love receiving your comments wherever you listen to podcasts, so you just never miss an episode that we drop every Wednesday. If something I said today resonated, share this episode with one woman in your life who might need to hear it. You don't have to say anything, just send it, right? Just tell them to check this out. And if you are at a place where you want real support, not just podcast wisdom and conversations, but actual therapeutic work, I want you to know that kind of support exists, right? We have people under my practice who can help you if I'm not able to help you, but information we're working with, just my company in general is in the show notes. I work just in general with just professionals who are ready to stop surviving and start really thriving in their lives, right? Especially after those toxic relationships. So I want you to be in spaces that actually can hold you. Take up all the space. Take it all up. So I'm so glad that you just are here. I thank you. You can follow me Moving Beyond You at TikTok or Instagram at IamSamantha.a. And I am just so proud of you for finishing through this. And I cannot wait to see you next week.